Hi students, and welcome to this chapter which is on coordinate geometry. Now I must tell you, coordinate geometry forms a very special part of mathematics. So basically in this chapter we are going to introduce you to the concepts of coordinate geometry. What exactly is coordinate geometry and why do we have to study about it? What are the applications of coordinate geometry? What is a coordinate plane? What are the different terms that we use in a coordinate geometry? And how to plot points on a coordinate plane? This is a very interesting branch of mathematics. So without wasting any moment, let's start exploring this branch of mathematics. So let's start with a very new chapter which is coordinate geometry. But again the same doubt. What is coordinate geometry and why do we have to study about it? Now I must tell you something. Coordinate geometry has a very special place in mathematics, and in your higher classes you are going to study about it in depth. But for now, it's important for us to understand the very basics of coordinate geometry. So that is something we are going to explore. What exactly is coordinate geometry and what are its applications in our day-to-day lives? Now, first of all, let us say that this is a plane and this extends infinitely in all the directions. Now, what exactly is a plane? We know that a plane is a flat surface that goes on forever in both the directions. So it will extend in this direction as well as in this direction. Now if we were to place a point on the plane, coordinate geometry gives us a way to describe exactly where it is by using two numbers. Now if I say there's a point in this plane, now this plane is infinitely large, and if I ask you what is the exact location of this point in this plane, then how are you going to tell me? So there lies the solution. Coordinate geometry is the science that helps us to describe the exact location of any point in a plane. And this too, it is done by using two numbers. So now what we can say is a system of geometry with the position of points on the plane is described using an ordered pair of numbers is exactly coordinate geometry. So coordinate geometry helps us to exactly locate any point on a plane, and that too using two numbers, and these two numbers actually form a pair, and this pair is known as the coordinates of any point. Now I know this is something hard to understand right now because this is altogether a new concept. How can two numbers exactly describe the location of any point? But don't worry, we are going to explore this and find an answer to this. Now let's try to look at a game. This is a rectangular table in which A, B, C, D, E, F represents the columns of this table, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 represents the rows of this rectangular table. Now let me tell you the rules of this game. Now you can clearly see that there are 36 blocks in this rectangular box, and what you are going to see is you are going to observe a cat in any one of these blocks. So the face of the cat can appear in this block or in this block or in this block and so on. You have to exactly locate that block and you have to hit that cat with a racket. Now isn't it funny? So let's try to play this. We see that this cat has appeared in this block. Now what we observe is the location of this cat is column D and row 3rd. So this cat appears in column number D and in the row number 3. So what we are going to do now is we are going to hit this cat with a racket. Similarly, now the cat appears here. Now this block is nothing but column number F and row number 4. So again we are going to hit it with our racket. Now this cat appears at the column number B and row number 5. So this block is represented by column number B and row number 5. So again we have located this cat and we are going to hit it with a racket. Again the cat appears here. What is the location of this cat? Here the column is A and the row is 2. So we have located it and will hit it with our racket. So what's the basic principle behind this game? Now here we see that there are two entities. The first is the column and the second is the row. So column and row together will tell us the exact location of a cat in this rectangular block. Thus what we can say is the information on the rows and columns help us to exactly locate the position of cat in this grid. Now what exactly is a coordinate plane? we are going to use this term very frequently. So let's try to see what exactly is a coordinate plane. A two-dimensional surface on which points are plotted and located by the x and y coordinates. So what we can say is coordinate plane is actually a plane, as the name suggests, and this plane is actually used for plotting points using the x coordinates and the y coordinates. Now what exactly are the x coordinates and y coordinates, that we are going to understand later. So this is a two-dimensional surface and it extends infinitely. So this is a coordinate plane. Now we have two lines on this plane. This line is known as the x-axis, which is the horizontal line, and also we have a vertical line. This line is known as the y-axis. Now you may see this is a point where the x-axis and the y-axis intersect, and this point is known as the origin, and we represent it by O. So now this is known as the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So in a coordinate plane, what we are going to see is it is a two-dimensional surface having an x-axis, which is the horizontal line, and the y-axis, which is the vertical line. The point of their intersection is O, and this plane, which is known as a coordinate plane, helps us to exactly locate the position of points on this plane. Now what is x-axis and what is y-axis? Again, we are going to study that in detail. So first is the x-axis. What do we mean by the x-axis? Let us say that this is the coordinate plane. Now we see that this is a line and which is horizontal, and we have a point 0 on it. This is the 0 of x-axis. Now in the number line, we have seen what exactly is a number line. Number line is a line which extends infinitely in both the directions, and it is actually a horizontal line and it has got numbers inscribed on it. So the same as the x-axis. We can think of x-axis as a horizontal line having all the real numbers on it, and this being the 0. So all the numbers towards this side are positive numbers, and all the numbers towards the left side of 0 are negative numbers. So x-axis has positive numbers on the right hand side of the 0, and it has got negative numbers on the left hand side of the 0. So this is the x-axis. So the horizontal scale is called as the x-axis. So as you go to the right on the scale from 0, the values are positive and get larger. So when we move towards the right hand side of the 0, we see the numbers are positive and their values are increasing. So you can find 1 here, then 2, then 3 and 4. So the numbers are in the increasing order. Similarly, as you go to the left from the 0, you get negative numbers. So you'll get -1 here, -2, -3, and again we see that as you go towards the left side of 0, the numbers start decreasing. So on the right hand side you'll find positive numbers, and on the left hand side you'll find negative numbers. So this is all about the x-axis. And the second type of axis is known as the y-axis. Now what exactly it is? Let us say that this is the coordinate plane. Now similarly, like the x-axis, we draw a number line, but this is vertical this time, and as it is a number line, we'll have a 0 somewhere on this line. Now as we move upwards from the 0, we get positive numbers and the values are increasing. Similarly, if we move downwards from the 0, we get negative numbers, but this time the values are decreasing. So what we can say is the vertical scale is called as the y-axis. As you go up from the 0, the numbers are increasing in positive direction. And as you go down from the 0, they get more and more negative. So when we go up, we get positive numbers and the values are increasing. While as we move down, we get negative numbers and the values are decreasing. So this is all about the y-axis, and y-axis has got all the real numbers. Now what exactly is the origin of the coordinate plane? Now we have seen what is the x-axis. X-axis is the horizontal line, and this is the 0 of the x-axis. So the number 0 is plotted on this location. Similarly, we have the y-axis, and again it has a 0 somewhere here. So this represents the 0 of y-axis. Now what if we join these axes such that their zeros coincide in the point of intersection of x-axis and y-axis is known as the origin. So this denotes the origin of the coordinate plane. So origin is nothing but the point where the x-axis and the y-axis intersect, or they have the common zero. The zero of x-axis and the zero of y-axis coincide with each other. Thus, the point where the two axes cross is called as the origin, which is actually the point of coincidence of the zeros of both the scales. Now, the origin is the point from which all the distances along the x-axis and the y-axis are measured. The origin is a standard point. Whenever we have to locate any point, we have to choose a reference point, and the distances are measured according to this reference point. So we have chosen origin as our reference point. So whenever we talk about the points on the coordinate plane, their distances are always measured with respect to the standard point or the reference point, which is known as the origin. Now let's see an example how a point is located on the coordinate plane. So let us say that this is the coordinate plane, where this represents the x-axis and this represents the y-axis. Also we see that there are numbers plotted on the x-axis as well as on the y-axis. Towards the right side of origin on the x-axis, we see that the numbers are positive and these are increasing. Also on the left hand side, we see that the numbers are negative and they are decreasing. Similarly, on the y-axis, if we move up from origin, we see that the numbers are increasing and these are positive numbers. And similarly, when we move down, we get negative numbers and their values are decreasing. So this is the coordinate plane and this is origin. Now, if we have any point here on the coordinate plane, now what do we observe here? This represents the distance of this point from the y-axis, and this represents the distance of this point from the x-axis. So the blue line represents the distance of this point from the y-axis, and the red line represents the distance of this point from the x-axis. Now what we see here is that this distance is actually equal to 3 units. So 1, 2 and 3. That is, the blue segment is equal to 3 units. Similarly, if we try to calculate the length of this red line, which is the distance of this point from the x-axis, then that is equal to 1 plus 2, and that is 2 units. So the distance of this point from the y-axis is 3 units and the distance of this point from the x-axis is 2 units. So we write the coordinates of this point as 3, 2. So this is actually a general notation how the coordinates of any point are represented on the coordinate plane. This is just an example to show you how to represent any point on the coordinate plane. It has got two numbers which actually specify the exact location of this point on the coordinate plane. Then let's see what are the coordinates of any point. Coordinates are a pair of numbers defining the position of a point on the two-dimensional plane. So coordinates actually help us to exactly define the position of a point on a two-dimensional plane. This two-dimensional plane, we call it as coordinate plane, and the coordinates of any point help us to exactly locate any point on this coordinate plane. The coordinates of a point are the pair of numbers that define its exact location on a two-dimensional plane. Also, the coordinates of a given point represent how far along each axis the point is located. So, the coordinates of any point help us to exactly find out the distance of this point from the x-axis and the y-axis. So what we can say is coordinates help us to exactly define the position of any point on the coordinate plane, and these are represented by two numbers, and these two numbers help us to exactly find out the distance of any point from the x-axis and the y-axis.